Lay. Sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long.
Hey, hello everyone. I hope everyone is having a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Kevin's big day. So we're going to kick the virtual launch party off with a panel discussion. We have Chucky Brown. Chucky, wave or say hi so everyone can see
Hello.
you.
Hello.
Chucky spent 13 years in the NBA with 12 different teams. He won a championship with the Houston Rockets. He coached 8 years in the D League, and he had 7 years experience of scouting. Joining Kevin,
You got everything.
is that right? Do you want to add anything
That's
else
right.
to that intro?
You got it all. You got it all.
Awesome. We have Ben Osborne. He was a senior features editor for Fox Sports Digital and former editor-in-chief of Bleacher Report and Slam Magazine, and he is currently the head of content for Just Women's Sports. Ben, wave or say hello so everyone could see you.
What's up, everyone?
What's up, Ben?
And if everyone could give the man of the hour a round of applause, everyone, woo! We have Kevin Owens, founder of Overseas Famous. He was a former professional basketball player, and now he is currently a published author. Congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you.
Before we get into the questions, I want to introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Cheryl Robinson. I'm a regular contributor at Forbes Women. I am the founder of Ready to Roar, and I am the editor of Overseas Famous. So I'm so excited to help Kevin launch his book today. All right. So Kevin, we're going to start with you. Yeah. What was the driving force behind Overseas Famous?
Honestly, the book was just a collection of stories. Don had, when I was, Don Povia, who's on the call, Don, when I was playing still, he ran a blog called Hugging Harold Reynolds. And I was just a struggling professional basketball player in terms of I was waiting to go play somewhere. I'd hurt my knee and the overseas market kind of dried up. So I was waiting to go play. So I started blogging about my career life as an overseas athlete waiting to go. And I called it Waiting for Godunk, which the Michael Canaris, who's on this call as well, created that name for me because it was a play on Waiting for Godot. So that became my blog. I wrote about my experiences overseas and all the crazy things that happened. And Don actually picked me up for Hugging Harold Reynolds. And from there, worked with Ben with Slam Magazine and Slam Online, and was able to get on SB Nation. And it kind of, started my writing career. So I had all these stories and I just said, you know what, let's put these together. And I think the one overlying factor is I was talking to a guy who played in the NBA currently and played overseas, Nick Stauskas, and Nick and I were talking. He told me, he's like, I was over there. He's like, every day my teammates were like, you can write a book about all the crazy shit that happens or stuff that happens. I'll keep it PG. All the crazy stuff that happens overseas. And that's what we were talking about. And I think everyone who goes overseas, there's so many crazy things that happen. I was just like, I'm going to write them down. I'm going to make a book out of it and just make it fun and enjoyable and a fun read so people can see overseas, but also enjoy the little hilarious situations that happen that were not hilarious at the time, but.
Right.
But what was that defining moment for you to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate my time to this book?
I think going through life, you kind of are separated from the game for a little while, and you kind of wonder what your legacy is going to be. And especially overseas, I think there's a lot of who you don't really know who anyone is. It's not really a wide media publicized. And I think, I remember going to Home Depot and people were like, "You're tall, you should play for the Sixers." And I'm like, dude, like, you understand that was my life's dream. I like, this is what I wanted my whole entire life, but I'm just a random tall guy. You don't know who I am, but I did all these things, but I'm not famous here. I'm only famous overseas. So I'm only overseas famous. So that became kind of that defining, to kind of be like, what's my legacy? What am I going to be remembered for? How's my daughter going to remember me? So I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to try to write this book and have these stories that could actually stick around forever.
Cool. All right. So what is the biggest takeaway that you want people to have after reading the book?
I honestly want, the biggest thing, I want to be entertained. I want people to be entertained. I wrote it as a funny, humorous piece. If you know me, I don't take myself seriously at all. So I think my friends growing up kind of put that in me, because they never let me get too high, which was pretty funny because, growing up, you start getting that success and you start going and playing college basketball and your friends are like, "I don't care, you're an idiot." And it was just kind of like, so that self-deprecating kind of became one of those things. So it's I want you to be entertained. I want you to laugh. But I also want that story of overseas basketball. I want you to know what goes on over there. I want to be the voice that's spreading these stories, because what happened to me happens to a whole lot of other people. It's not just me. I'm the one. While these stories are unique to me, they're not unique in terms of the things that occurred, in terms of not getting paid, getting ghosted after you get injured, the crazy language barrier, all these things, they're not unique to me. So that's why I really wanted to write these down and have this voice for overseas athletes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to transition over to Chucky. So besides playing in the NBA, you also had an international career. How can you relate to Kevin's stories in the book?
Oh, I can relate, big time, because they are stories that, I was just thinking about myself, like the stories that I have are stories that, they're funny now, but they weren't funny at the time, because you're not home, because America is your home, and it's a lot of wild stuff going on over there, and you're a foreigner, and it's like he said, it's unique, and like you said, there's stories that are, some stories you can tell, some stories you can't tell. Some stories you can't tell. Oh, you told me. Well, some stories, I can't tell. You know what I'm saying? So, of stuff that happened, but it's definitely, it brings back memories of when I was over in Italy playing, and some of the things that happened to me.
So can you share a little bit about what happened in Italy? I know you mentioned a little bit about it in the foreword, but I think it's a great example of what happens overseas.
Yeah, like when Kevin mentioned about not getting paid, I remember playing in Italy, and this guy, like the I never forget him. His name was Luciano Padini, was the general manager, and like, he didn't speak English, so like, when I walked by him, I would just like give a nod, like, "Hey, what's up?" That's what we do in America. So what's up, and keep it moving. So he didn't speak English anyway, so I'm not gonna hold a conversation with you. So I remember one day doing that, and so happened he might have been in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden I get a call saying, "Yo, we have a conference call. You got to go." My agent tells me I got to be on this conference call. So I'm like, all right, So I'm sitting in there, and they're speaking Italian, and my interpreter at the time was Mike D'Antoni. He was on the call as well. So, because Mike D'Antoni was over there at the same time I was over there. Then I'm listening to everything, and I'm like, I'm sitting there like, what am I doing here? Then I hear, the dude wanted to fine me $20,000 for not speaking to him. So I'm like, what? You're gonna fine me $20,000? And then it happens that the check that I was supposed to get on the 1st, I wasn't getting until the 15th. So they were behind a payment. And so what ended up happening is I was like, well, look, I'm gonna get out of here. This place is crazy. So we negotiated a price, what they supposed to give me. And I didn't get a dime of it. But once I got out of there, I was like, you can have it. I'm gone. So I was going, whatever I had to do to get home. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yo, you need, yeah, I'm gonna do it. But once I get on that plane to go home, it's like, bam, so I'm out of there. But yeah, the not getting paid thing, that brings back memories of that, because they will hold your money on you. If they feel like the team is not performing like they want it, they blame the American. You know what I'm saying? Because I was over there a little while, like back in '93. I was over there, so that was a little while before Kevin was over there. But they blame the American for everything. So, but yeah, that brought back a lot of memories of that.
Were you the only American on the team at that point?
Nah, I had another American on the team, but he had been with the team. What was that dude named Winfred King? He was on the team, a few years, and so he had a rapport with the management. He spoke fluent Italian. So I went to school when I was in New York. I went to school with a lot of Puerto Ricans, so I learned a lot of Spanish. And what I did learn was that Spanish and Italian are similar. So I was able to pick up on some of the stuff that they were saying. But he had a good rapport with them, and it came to a point where he and I didn't really get along. So it wasn't like I had a friend I was kind of over there solo. So, I did, the best I could until I couldn't take it no more. And, you don't want to get out of character in another country. So I was like, well, let me get out of here before I get out of character. So, yeah, so I did have another American, but he wasn't, he wasn't like an American, a true American, you say. I'm gonna put it like that. I'm gonna try to be nice.
All right. So while you were coaching Kevin, what stood out to you the most about his character as a player?
The first time that I met Kevin, I could tell he was a good person, good guy. And he probably was, the one thing about Kevin was probably a little too nice, what I'm saying, on the court, and most big people are nice, you know what I'm saying? But, it's the little people that are mean, they mad because they're small. So, and I'm not trying to offend anybody that's small here. I ain't seen none of y'all, but I'm just saying in general. So, but, Kevin was a nice guy, big guy, and he had a great work ethic, you know what I'm saying? So I enjoyed working with Kevin because of his work ethic, but Kevin, was the type of guy that he'd knock a guy down, he might help him up, unless, he got angry. Now, if he got angry, he didn't care. And like Coach Davidson, the guy that used to coach with us, he used to try to get Kevin mad a lot because Kevin seemed to like not care. And when you get on the court, you really can't be nice because other people are not being nice to you. You have to kind of be a different guy, and I think I think Kevin being such a nice guy, you had to kind of get him upset, and then he would play angry, and that's how I like to see him play as well.
All right, so thank you. We're gonna pivot over to Ben. So Ben, you've covered sports for a long time. Have you noticed any commonalities with international players?
I mean, definitely. I'm excited to my new venture to maybe cover some women's players, and I guess maybe I've met a couple baseball players, but really it's been basketball, men's basketball players overseas. I've met a lot of them that have done that. And I mean, obviously a love of the game and a dedication to it, because as is being discussed, there's a lot of challenges that come with it. So I always respected that. And then, some great stories, and then a pretty big misunderstanding of what it's like over there. I mean, I think that's what's really neat about this book, is that, people don't have a great grasp of the ups and certainly the downs, the difference in fan behavior, the difference. Just a big one is like the difference in structure. So many practices and so few games is obviously very, very opposite here. So, yeah, I mean, I think, the more that people can be prepared before they go, the better, because, there's often, there's some struggles for sure. But again, I think that the guys that have stuck with it, they figure out what works. And they're very dedicated to the game. And then also, yeah, the ones that do it for a long stretch and kind of develop certain lifestyle habits, whether it's picking up language, whether it's an interest in trying other foods, other cultures. I mean, it's an incredible, like, a chance to have an incredible human experience, but that requires, opening of your mind and, just getting off of, the way an athlete might live here. So I think the ones that have lasted a long time have an adaptability, an open mind, a curiosity that has served them well. And then the ones that didn't make it, I don't really hold much against them. I think it is very challenging, but many of those cultural differences, both on, off the court for sure with payment and rules, but also the on the court as far as just the amount of practice and less games has been a problem for people, basically.
Yeah. So when you interview the international players, do you find that they're more appreciative of getting coverage on them versus regular, NBA players, or is it about the same?
I mean, at Slam, I think they were definitely more appreciative. They weren't used to a lot of coverage, so they were excited to have, or maybe they were over there, but Slam is like such a dream for so many American basketball players. So if they're playing overseas and we're still watching them or covering them, I would say they were much more appreciative. And then even in summers or see guys at street ball games or whatever, I think that they were happy that Slam was remembering them in some fashion.
All right. So from your experience, why is this book relevant for what's going on with sports now?
I mean, I think it's relevant for what's going on in the world after years of, opening borders and expanded travel. We have, political mayhem. We have a pandemic that makes it very hard to get around. So there might be a shrinking of the world again, which is, I would say, a step back as a human society. So to learn from someone that did it and has been there and has met people all over the world and experienced different things that, the average human just doesn't get to, and the average American, and be reminded of, what a big world is out there, and hopefully keep people motivated that, when it's safe to be traveling, that they remember that it's something beautiful to do. I mean, that's a very personal answer, but I as much as people can afford it, I'd love them to get out and see new places, and this book is a kind of way to do that if you're not able to right now.
Thank you. So Kevin, I want to go back to something that Chucky said. He had his zero friends or American allies on the international team. How important was it for you in your career to have those allies?
I mean, it was very important. I feel like as a player, you end up, it's the new day of, you're in the first day of school every single year, and especially with overseas basketball, you rarely ever go to the same team twice. So you're constantly changing teams, and you're constantly going and being like, hi, I'm the American. And it's like you're the new kid in school, and everyone's like kind of watching you in practice, like, does this dude suck? And you're kind of like, I hope not. And it's just one of those things that as you go through, it becomes a struggle. So when you kind of latch on to that one or two teammates that you're like, especially the Americans, and I think a lot of guys who play, you end up latching onto the Americans because obviously you have the commonalities. I mean, you're the same things, the same shows, the same culture. So you end up hanging with the Americans, and every once in a while, a foreign guy comes in, and you're kind of like, okay, like, he's especially the younger guys. I felt like they really understood American culture. Kind of what Ben was saying with Slam was such an iconic thing, and Slam became this magazine that embodied the whole entire basketball culture, and a lot of guys overseas grew up on that culture. So a lot of the younger guys were very almost Americanized. So they wanted to hang, they wanted to do this, they wanted to be our friends and stuff. The older guys were just like, do your job, win me a championship, and don't talk to me.
All right, so this question is for all three of you. Do you think there's anything that could be changed in the US to help protect international players?
I mean, I think it's tough because international play, it's almost like you're following your own set of rules. So when you don't have that specific set of rules, you play in the NBA, you're subject to those rules. So you get, fined. These are things that happen in this league. When you play overseas, FIBA has sanctions and stuff, but it's really not, they don't really use their jurisdiction to really control things. It's more to make money. So FIBA kind of has that corruption where it's just like, we're trying to govern, but they don't really protect the players. You have the NBA, pension and things like that. And a lot of things set up for NBA guys when they retire. And the overseas guys, there's just really not that, which is what I'm trying to build for my company, trying to build something for those overseas guys. But right now, I think it's tough because you don't have those sanctions, you don't have those rules. And when you can't abide by those rules, I mean, you get fined in the NBA, that shit's coming out of your paycheck. Like it's not like I'm not going to pay it and I'm going to take a plane somewhere. Like, no, you're paying it, you're gone. Overseas, there's just no rules. And kind of because of that, it becomes lawless. Because of that, you find a lot of the stories that I put in this book. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I would like to piggyback on that. I think that if there's a way that the team, whatever team you go to, could be like investigated and made sure that the spot is a good place for you. You know what I'm saying? Like a safe place for you. Because when I went over, I was over in Florence, Italy, and after I left, I started finding out all these things about the owner and all this, hearing all this crazy stuff. I'm like, man, I didn't know all that. So I think that if we could protect, when you say international, you mean like Americans going over there, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if there was a way that we could protect, the American players when they go overseas, if there's a way we could protect them as far as finding out, have somebody find out more about the organization that they were going to. Because if I'd have known the things about this particular organization, I wouldn't have went there. I had another deal in France that I could have went to, and I would have taken that, instead. You know what I'm saying? So I think if there was a way to protect the players when they go overseas, so there's not that lawlessness over there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that would be great.
Yeah. Ben, do you want to add anything?
I mean, things are motivated by money, and I feel like, it's hard to know what to believe with agents. I feel like I know a few now who really specialize in guys overseas and take a lot of pride in that. I mean, I'm not going and interviewing all of their clients, but they're people that, keep them for a while. And, I just don't see FIBA being motivated to protect American players or really any players. They're still more for the club in the country. And these guys tend to be interchangeable a little bit. So, I mean, in the short term, sadly, this is kind of an individual problem, but I think you got to be really careful with who you hire as your representation. And ideally, that person has had a lot of experience and can really vet the clubs for you, as well as your own personal network of players and coaches. But like Kevin and Chucky are saying, I mean, there's just so much more onus on the player, which is just a whole other burden to going over there, from new practice, new language. It's like, oh, and I kind of got to research this myself. But I guess it's either, if you do have a trustworthy agent, that should be their job.
Okay. So, Chucky, are you raising your hand?
Yeah. I wanted to add to what Ben was saying. I want to add what Ben was saying. Now, back when I was overseas, we didn't have the internet and all that stuff to to do the research. So I'm kind of telling you, yeah, I'm a little old. So, but we didn't have the internet. And then back then, I don't know how they do it now. Back then, you know, when you signed your contract, the agent got 10%, and they got their 10% before you got on the flight to go over there. So I don't think it was a lot of motivation for the agents to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? So when I found out, you know, all the stuff that I found out, I ended up firing my agent as soon as I got back home. So because he shouldn't have put me in that particular situation.
Yeah.
But you know, now, you know, there is you know, with the internet, everything being on the internet, I think that a lot of players now can do their own research now. You know, so I think that would be a good thing for players to do today.
Now, was that agent also your NBA agent?
Yeah, he was my NBA agent for probably 2 or 3 years before,
Okay.
because I played in the NBA like 4 years before I went overseas, and he was my agent for like 3 years, But then, you know, when I found out what I found out, like, dude,
Yeah.
you can't put me in that situation. Are you crazy? You know what I'm saying? So then I had to let him go.
Yeah. Okay. So do any of you have any other comments that you would like to share or talk about before we turn it over to Kevin?
It looks like someone's got a question.
Oh. How come I'm not seeing it? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Shane. I see you.
So as you guys are talking about the differences between the clubs in Europe and overseas versus France, Italy, Germany, I grew up in Germany myself, so I speak fluent German and things like that. How much did the language barrier impact your ability to be successful on the court with your team? Like, how big was that dynamic in your training and things like that? How were you guys able to find common ground?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. I was lucky in terms of where I played. I played in Australia. I played in New Zealand, Estonia. The coaches, I feel like a lot of the coaches spoke English. A lot of the assistant coaches spoke English just because they're dealing with so many Americans. Same with Kosovo, places like that. A lot of European countries. When I played in South Korea, that was a whole nother story. They like did not speak English. Their translators didn't speak English. It was a shit show. Like, I was just dealing every day. People were yelling different weird things at me, and I had no idea what they were saying. It was just a disaster. So I know that was a challenge on the court, because you have a timeout, and you know, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but like, this timeout and this little bit of information, and no one's speaking English and everyone's shouting at each other, and I'm like just sitting there like, I'm just going to do my own thing, guys. It's cool.
All right. Oh,
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on what Kevin said. For me, it wasn't as difficult. Well, I mean, I know they, like I said, they spoke, you know, Italian, but English was the second language. You know, they did speak English. Now, when we had a timeout, the coach only spoke in Italian. But I was lucky that I had a guy that was from America. John Schultz was his name. He was from America, and he was the assistant coach. He had played over in Italy a long time, so every time out, he would stand beside me and tell me everything the coach was saying. So it wasn't that difficult for me. But had I not had him, it would have probably been difficult.
all right. So we're going to save the questions for the end, but I want to thank Chucky and Ben for joining us on the panel. Everyone give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Now, here's what we've been waiting for. Kevin, I am turning it over to you, and you are going to share some really awesome stories from the book. I just want to tell you, as an editor, I read the book so many times, and there are certain stories where I still laughed out loud, even after the 20th time. I promise you, it's an awesome read, and I was so thankful to be a part of this project with him, and I can't wait for you to hear some of these stories. Kevin, it's all you.
Thank you so much. Obviously, you know, you, Don, Chucky, Ben, like all of you guys, for your help has been tremendous. Talking to you guys, having you guys write the foreword, having you guys write endorsements, it's meant a lot. So you guys, Cheryl, editing, Don, setting a lot of all of this up, it's meant a lot. So I appreciate you guys so much for all that you've done to make this project come to life. So I appreciate that. But Shane, I'm actually going to read some of the excerpts I had. I had this one pulled up. So I'm going to read a bit from when I actually had that interaction with my coach. And this takes place in South Korea. I was playing for a team called Hyundai Mobis Phoebus. We were sponsored by Hyundai. I'm not buying Hyundai anymore. We'll get into that. I mean, that's when you read the book, you'll understand why. But it's a timeout, and the coach, everything's crazy now. I had a translator, Lee, who was like early 20s, spoke English but didn't understand basketball like at all. So he was just a guy who didn't understand like the nuances of the game. So when he translated things, it didn't make any sense to me, because he would say weird things, and he would be like, we would say things and he'd be like, pass the ball down to the other player and sprint to the other, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, just tell me to go set a screen. Why are you being so weird? But that's what he would do. So this is a situation from that part. So I'm just going to read a few paragraphs. All right. This is super weird, by the way, and I'm a little uncomfortable, but whatever. I'm amongst like everyone I know is here. So I feel like I'm like pretty comfortable. My mom's here. So everyone, hi mom. All right. So during this one timeout, my coach was attempting to tell me that I needed to rebound better in his native tongue. At least I think that's what he was saying. Our bench was located directly in front of a loud crowd, which drowned out his instructions. My coach was yelling something along the lines of, this is my attempt at writing the sound I heard. Hasingwa! I looked to my translator, who apparently also had a hard time hearing. Again, Hasingwa! The seconds were rapidly ticking away in the timeout, and all I was hearing was Hasingwa! This time my translator, still unaware of what was being said, decided to ad-lib. Put the opposing player out further. Not knowing what manner of the game he was referring to, I yelled out, what? My coach, infuriated at this point, threw out a few words I recognized as swears. My response was simple, efficient, and to the point. What? At this point, the lid was officially blown off the situation. The coach was livid. We were in a tense situation, and the most important player in the transpiring play was staring blankly at him. Lee stood next to me on the sideline, repeating the phrase, put the opposing player out further. He kept getting closer and closer to my ear, thinking it was a noise issue and not the what the fuck are you talking about issue. My coach was, sorry, mom. My coach was glaring at me like I just pushed over his mother. The one English word I know he could say was Kevin. He shouted my name, looked me in the eyes like I was the one messing up this interaction, and screamed, Kevin, Hasingwa! Holy shit. Lee, why would I push the man out further? We are on offense. Because he is too close to the backboard. What the actual fuck is happening right now? Eventually, I just shook my head and agreed and took the court. So that's the little part about the little bit of confusion in that situation. So that was weird. Reading in front of people is really weird. I did it with like all the like NBA, like Chucky knows. We do these like NBA D-League, and it was like read to achieve, and we would sit there and read. Now we're playing in front of like 20,000 fans and everything's like crazy. And there's like 10 kindergartners and they're like read in front of them. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so horrible. And I'm just sitting there reading in front of them like Horton Hears a Who. And they're just staring at me, like judging me. And I'm like, this is the worst situation. So like, yeah, reading in front of people, it's crazy.
You're doing good. I'm
trying.
All right. So why don't you read my favorite story?
All right. So this is this is a story. So
wait,
when I was in
put
Estonia,
the pictures up, Kevin. Put the pictures.
Oh shit! Oh shoot! Sorry. Here we go. So the picture, here's me playing in Korea. This was the picture I just had shared. This was me in Korea. Nothing special. Listen, Chucky can know, like the internet was still like, it was a new thing when I was going. So pulling pictures offline is very difficult, especially when you share your name with a wrestler who has completely stolen all of whatever the search whatever, what are those things called? Whatever they are, he stole them all from me. So now I'm like sharing my name with him. So finding a picture is like me finding this grainy little thing that's like all I could find from Korea. And I was not calling them to be like, hey, can you guys send me a picture? I was like, whatever, I'll figure it out. All right, so this is when I was playing in Estonia, I was writing. So I was writing for Don at the time. I was also writing for Slam for Ben. I was sharing stories of like Estonia, and I was sharing stories of waiting. So I get this contract from Estonia, and I'm pretty sure 80% of the reason that they signed me was because they wanted publicity in like Slam. So they're like, yeah, sign this guy. Like, I don't care if he sucks and his knees are bad, just sign him. So I end up going, and they write this whole, they're like, can you write an article for our publication? I'm like, sure. So I write this article about me arriving in Estonia, blah, 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 like what it was like, etc. So they're like, this reporter calls me and they're like, we need you to take pictures so we can match up the pictures with your face. Like, people are going to see, but like, we want them to see you like more casually. So we need to take pictures. So we're going to have a photo shoot. I was like, okay. So they end up like dragging me to like the middle of this huge snowy field. Now, if you've never heard of Estonia, it's like by Russia, but like not the like nice, it's like by like it's north. So it's like by Finland and Russia, like on the same, what is that called? Latitude. Yeah, latitude. It's like on the same latitude as like Siberia. It's like, so it's freezing, it's cold all the time. So there's snow upon snow. So when I wrote this article, I told them that I brought flip-flops because I was just like, I don't know why I bought flip-flops. I just wear them all the time. So I brought them. So I was like, all right. So they took me to get a picture. And this is me just writing about the time when I went modeling in Estonia. And this is the picture that ended up being going in the magazine. Dressed to the nines in my finest sweat clothing, we proceeded to the field. I noticed walking up to the snowy meadow that we were in uncharted territory. Neither human nor animal had ventured through this field in months. The large footsteps I was creating were the only of its kind. I also noticed the steps were getting deeper and deeper as the snow was getting higher and higher. I was soon about to find out why. The first pose was of me lying on the ground making a snow angel like I was a child. I was not expecting hijinks of this magnitude when I took the gig, but I proceeded on. I took my first step onto the snowy terrain and immediately felt unstable. I could feel the 3 feet of packed snow beneath me, struggling to support my weight. My second step was equally horrible, taking my right foot a little deeper and nearly sending me tumbling. Then came my third step, which sent me plummeting through the snow. My left leg was now submerged up to my hip in the white abyss. In a foolish attempt to recover, I quickly jerked my left leg out, causing my right leg to suffer the same fate. As you can imagine, the sequence repeated itself several times until the photographer, safely on solid ground 15 feet back, told me to stop. Okay, turn and drop, and then make a snow angel, she instructed. She began moving her hands up and down to her side as if I didn't go to Catholic school for 12 years and know what an angel looked like. As I turned, I began to think about the trust-building exercise I participated in when I was in second grade, in which I fell back into a group of peers whom I trusted to catch me. Although 3 of them still ate glue, I still trusted them more than I trusted the snow. I closed my eyes, lifted my arms, and dropped, nearly disappearing in a snowy grave. I had fallen about a foot deep into the frigid frost. That's perfect, she yelled, the echoes eventually reaching me through the ice. You can stand up now. Can I? I began rolling myself out of the angelic hole and swam back to the photographer. Is that it? I asked, covered in ice and snow and hoping for some sort of relief to my now frostbitten toes. The snow had become wedged into my boots during my escapades across the field, and now my toes were freezing. Almost, she said, holding up the sandals. Oh, what the hell? I began to thinking of ways to tell my coach I could no longer play, as 4 of my toes had to be amputated. I sat in the shallow snow and removed my boots and socks. The frigid air did not alleviate the stinging on my feet. She handed me the sandals and asked me to head back out to the deep end with nothing to protect my poor piggies. If the one episode of America's Next Top Model I watched taught me anything, it's to be as sexy as I can despite the discomfort I may be feeling. I had to suck it up and give the people what they wanted. Although my bare feet were submerged in ice guarded only by a thin piece of rubber, I gave the camera the sexiest eyes I could and posed my ass off. My gray sweatshirt pictures with a ripped pocket and white flip-flops in the tundra came out as expected. I looked cold and uncomfortable, which was precisely what I was going for. So that was my fun little story of walking through the Estonian snow for some reason, because modeling is just a full-time job.
All right, so for the next one with the flares, you really have to set the scene for this.
Okay. All right. So this one's a little shorter. So if you guys are like falling asleep, just hang tight. All right. So Kosovo's crazy. I know, you know, the Balkan Peninsula, you got Greece, you got Serbia, you got Kosovo, the Macedonia. Those people are a little like off, like that Albanian, you know, it's crazy. Like the whole Balkan Peninsula, everyone's like very on edge right there. So they're just very angry, and they're good people when you meet them, but they're just like so angry in the game. So anytime you hear something about like fans throwing things onto the court, we're like, whoa, as Americans. I mean, trust me, I know Shane had a Philadelphia shirt on. I know, like, you know, Matt and like my sister, like there's like most of the people here are like Philadelphia fans, except Chuck. So all the Philadelphia fans, like we threw snowballs at Santa, you throw batteries at JD Drew, and it's like labeled through the years. But this shit happens literally every single time you step on a court in these places. Like people are throwing something on the court, like even if it's a little bit. I know my brother played in Turkey. He told me a story. There was like they ripped off the sink of like the nozzle of the drain and like threw it onto the court, and there was like a dum and like a huge like nozzle where like the water would come out was just there, and he's just like, that's crazy. So this is what we're dealing with. And it was just crazy. So we were playing in a game, and we're playing the Cup Championship. It's Peja and my team, Sigel Pristina, and it's getting crazy. We end up kind of taking the lead, and they start dicking around, and like they start, like, their coach keeps calling timeouts. Now their fans are starting to throw stuff at us, and they're throwing flares, and their coach starts calling timeouts to like increase this onslaught. So now our fans are starting to throw things at them. So this is kind of where we head on.
Put the picture up.
Oh, what'd you say?
Put the picture up.
Oh shit, shoot. All right, share screen. All right, so this is what it looks like. This is the whole game. The flares are just being lit at all times. So you have, this is that game. The flares are being lit. Half of those flares ended up on the court for some reason. But this is what it looked like. You had there, and then on the opposite end of the court, you had their fans doing the same crazy stuff with different color flares, like it was like G.I. Joe and the different lasers. All right. As the buzzer sounded, I heard another noise that piqued my attention. It was the sound of coins pelting off the floor. Our fans were firing coins at the Peja players and coaches for what they thought was not a classy move. Apparently, hurling small metal objects at an innocent human being is the best way to keep everyone classy. The Peja fans, not ones to be outdone by all the classiness, began hurling coins towards us. The police force closed in around us with their shields still raised above their heads. We were ushered to the back wall below our bench and cocooned under the clear shield still being held high by the officers. The sound of screaming fans, Albanian profanity, and metal coins bouncing off plastic shields were soon followed by the distinct sound of glass breaking. I was hoping it was Stone Cold Steve Austin sauntering down the aisle, ready to stone cold stun the entire Peja crowd, but the sound was something far more ominous. For some reason, the back wall of the balconies that housed the fan section were lined with windows. This allowed for natural light, pleasant breezes, and more importantly, small weaponized pieces of glass to use when you were pissed off that your team lost. The distinct sound of glass breaking was because the Peja fans were smashing those windows and hurling the dangerous shards at us. Let me clarify. that a group of human beings who supported a basketball organization were punching through windows to break glass, picking that sharp, dangerous glass up and throwing it at a group of basketball players who were playing a game. The 17 of us sat crouched down against the wall behind our bench, surrounded by clear plastic shields as the barrage of paraphernalia bounced off the clear force field. Every so often, a piece would make it through its way through our defenses. I heard a few teammates yell in pain as the rest of us braced for impact. The onslaught continued for 10 minutes or so until either they ran out of change, glass, or interest. The pay fans slowly dispersed and were escorted to the middle. We were escorted to the middle of the floor to finally hoist the trophy over our heads. Only a handful of fans remained for the celebration. The rest presumably headed outside to battle to the death for Albanian Town Prep. So that's the story of, and like I talked about, before that, I talked about like they were throwing flares into the court. Fans were like trying to crawl across the balconies, like went across. It was wild. But now this is like a huge cup game because it was Paya and Pristina. They were the two best teams in Kosovo. So it was intense. It was just a little crazy. Do you want to do the final one, Cheryl?
Yeah, bring us home.
All right. So
Wait, Kevin. Do you have the other picture?
This guy. I thought this would be. So just a picture. I have a black eye in this picture. I just kind of thought it was good and fitting for this part. Now, I'm not going to read the actual ending. It's like Avengers Endgame. I'm not going to blow it all up so you guys can hear it, but I'm going to read like a little bit before. This is kind of like what we like to call my Wonder Years moment, where I kind of really reflect on a lot of things. As I mentioned before, like my confidence, I'm like very self-deprecating. So I grew from a very unconfident kid into like the kind of semi-confident adult that I am now. But this is kind of about how I will be remembered, and what Cheryl had said earlier, the question where, we talked about what do you want to be remembered? How does this, like, what is this, the purpose of this book? And I think the purpose of this book is kind of summed up here, because I want to be remembered and thought of in a positive light by the people who watch me play. So, and I'm going to give a spoiler alert. So this is a funny story real quick. Sorry, I know it's like 7:21. You guys are like, oh my God, I had dinner and stuff. When I was like last week, there was a guy who called me. There was this article that went out in like a lot of different publications in New Jersey. And a guy called me because I went to Camden Catholic. And he's like, he works with, I don't even think I told my friend Mike this. Mike is, he's a theology professor, but I haven't even told him this, so he can hear it now. So the Catholic Star Herald wrote me and they were like, hey, we really want to do a story on you. I was like, do you? I was like, listen, full disclosure, this book starts with like me walking into an orgy. Like that's how it starts. Like I was at exposure camp. I walked in and there was like a straight up orgy going on. And that's how the book starts. That's what I told him. He's like, oh, let me get back to my people. Like literally 10 minutes later, he's like, yeah, we're going to pass. I was like, good choice. I don't know if that would really fly in the Catholic Star Herald. I think Mike used to write for them. So yeah, that would definitely not fly for them. All right, so this is kind of like mentions that in the first part. So I frequently go back to my first night of that initial exposure camp, where I laid under the stars wondering how I could face the orgy participants the following day and the mortification that would follow. It makes me realize how far I had come from the skinny, shy, scared kid hiding in the bed of my truck to the strong, confident man who would have told everyone to take the party elsewhere because I needed to sleep. However, while my confidence has grown, that hint of regret still dances in the back of my mind. That phrase repeated over and over, were you good enough? This philosophical debate resonated in my brain while the steel needle delivered ink into the dermis of my skin, creating a cold, burning sensation. I reminisced on the memories of my basketball career and how I would be remembered by the countless people who saw me play. More importantly, how I would be remembered by my daughter, who hopefully, after reading this when she is older, will realize that her dad was not just a normal dad, but a cool dad. Will I be remembered as the guy standing behind a barrier of plastic while an onslaught of metal glass and flares was lethally thrown at my head? Or maybe I'll be the guy with high socks who couldn't make a free throw, but rebounded the shit out of the ball. Or the guy that finally stood up to the bully after spending his whole life being a punching bag. Would I be the skinny kid with zero confidence who, for a second, thought he could successfully navigate the pitfalls of adolescence and finally get the girl? Or the hard-nosed tough guy who never quit and never stopped fighting? Maybe I'll be remembered as the guy with long hair who for some reason had his shirt off at the bar a lot. Or the guy wandering around the snow in a pair of flip-flops. Or maybe, just maybe, I could be all of these. So that's kind of my Wonder Years moment, which kind of like takes you into like the end of the story. But yeah, I like that because it just really brings I think the one thing with this book that I thought was tough, and I mean other authors I'm sure can agree, like I'm putting everything out there. Like my life is out there. Like there's nothing, if I want the reader to read and know me personally, like I want them to be like, I feel like I know this guy. Like this is like, he's put himself out there, and that's what I wanted. But it's also kind of a scary thing to put yourself out there like that, because people are like, this is stupid, then like my life is stupid. So it's one of those things where that was definitely a choice to be like, you know what, like my mom always said, like, you know, I hope you dance, take a chance anytime you can. I have it tattooed on my wrist. Always take a chance. Like, I hope you dance. And that's one thing that I feel like with this book, I was like, screw it. Like, I'm putting myself out there. I'm completely exposing myself, and, you know, we'll see what happens. But it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed writing it. Hopefully with the excerpts, you guys enjoyed a little bit, or if you thought it was stupid, you know, just order the book and just throw it in the fire. I don't care, whatever, just do what you need to do.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. We're going to open it up for questions now. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right, so I'm gonna ask you the first question. Well, we'll get the ball rolling. How do you think you grew as a person, not as a player, but as a person through those experiences?
Well, I mean, we talked a lot about confidence. I mean, there was many times on the court that taught me to be more, you know, resilient off the court and more tough off the court. Because, I mean, when I was in high school, I was 6'9" and I weighed 195 pounds. Now I weigh 265 pounds now. So I was a really skinny, goofy kid. So like I was just devoid of confidence, because you're like in high school, you have guys who are like strong and they're athletic, and you're like, and then there's me, this like dork, and everyone's just like, you know, like my whole life you're just trying to be like, oh, will this girl like me? Will this? And then you kind of go through life and lacking confidence. So that was one thing that I feel like this book taught me or this experience taught me is a lot with confidence. I grew as a person. I became a stronger, more confident human being. I wasn't scared of confrontation anymore. Those little interactions on the court. So that was a big reason.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I know you had the dog in Roanoke, right?
Yes.
Whatever happened to that dog? And I think you had told me that they wouldn't let you bring it into the country because it was part pit bull. Is that right?
Yeah. So I went to when I went to Australia, my mom can attest to this. When I went to Australia, she would have had to be quarantined for a long time because she was part pit bull, and also because like there's a normal quarantine process with any animal that ends up going into a country. So she would have to be quarantined, but because she was pit bull, it was like 3 months of quarantine. So I was like, well, shit, I'm only going for like 7-8 months. Like that's like a long time. And then she has to kind of go into this like month-long thing before she leaves. I was like, she's barely going to be here. So I turned to my mom and I was like, Mom, I have this dog. She's a complete asshole. Like, she's mean to everyone. Can you watch her for 8 months? And my mom, bless her heart, my sister was just like, yup, I got you. And they took the dog. And then when I came back, she, you know, she was a survivor. Like, I would go overseas and she would be like, I would come home and she'd jump on me for a few days and she'd just go back to being an asshole. And then she eventually passed away, I guess, like 2011, I guess. And then I got like all the good dogs that aren't assholes.
Marietta, you have a question?
Marita, yes, thank you, Dr. Robinson. Kevin, thank you so much for this. I technically have two, but I'll save it, with one in the interest of time. So what do you wish you might have learned during college basketball that might have prepared you to go overseas?
That's a good question. I think college is you're so young. We did like the European tour, and that was kind of a learning experience to kind of see how professional basketball works over there. But there's so many things. I always go back to high school and I'm like, my first, I was not like, can't stress this enough. I was decent my junior year in high school, but I wasn't good. My senior year, I was pretty good. But my junior year in high school, I wasn't good. And Henry Bibby, USC, was like called with the first call I got, and they're like, hey, come. So I constantly think back to that time, and I was like, no, it's too far away, California, no. And I think back to that, and I'm like, what could have been prepared at USC that couldn't have been prepared at Monmouth? Like, what did they have? What platforms, what strength, what coaches do they know who could have played overseas? So I think that's one thing that I always think about. Maybe if I want a bigger place, but I think Monmouth did a great job. I just think it was just such a small school, and I was one of the pioneers of overseas basketball. I mean, there's a lot of guys from Monmouth who've ended up going, but I was one of the first ones really to kind of make that jump. So it was tough. I think I wasn't really prepared, but I did have my brother. My brother's a year older or 2 years older, and he played in the D League and overseas. So he kind of had that experience. So he kind of helped me out a lot with a lot of those things.
All right, Don, you're up.
Say hi to Abby. She decided to crash my party.
Hey.
Gonna go find the swing set. Hey man, I just want to jump in and say congratulations. I can't believe, I mean, we've probably known each other for 25 years now, not as long as some people on this call. But, I just want to say Kevin's been very deferential to everyone, but, really he's put the work in, both obviously on the court, but for this book. And, he deserves it. I know how much he's passionate about it. And I hope you all kind of go out there and, just encourage friends to read it. It really is a great read. It's an easy read. It's entertaining. But Kevin, I was just thinking back when you're talking about Monmouth and stuff, and that's where he and I met. I played a year of football. He played basketball. You're either Greek or an athlete there, or you commuted. So kind of ran in the same circles. But I'll never forget, I had finished up about a semester early. I started working. So when you guys were in the NCAA tournament against Duke, I'm at home. I got a job. I got a little bit of money. I invite all my friends over. I get about 150, 200 wings. I'm going to watch the game. They play about the first 3 minutes on TV. And then turn it off. And I'm stuck with all these wings and the 1 in 16 games, and then they switch over to the 7 and 8s or whatever it is. Yeah. But man, just great memories, and I'm just really proud of you, man, and best of luck. And please, to everybody on this call, just if you know Kevin, or if you're a fan of the sport and the game, there's not a nicer person out there. So do him a favor and go tell a friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Don.
You owe me 200. You owe me 200 wings.
I got you. It's so funny because a few of my friends from that I grew up with said the same thing. They're like, we went to the bar, we're all pumped up. They're like, Mom, we know him. They're all like going. It's like immediately like Battier, Dunleavy, Jay Williams, and it's just like 17-9. We're like, all right. They're like, okay, we're gonna switch over to the. And I was like, everyone's just like, no. Meanwhile, they didn't get to see the hard fought, what was it, 95 to like 57 battle that we ensued.
Does anyone else?
Wait, what was it? Wait. I got to say this though. I remember. I think the NEC tournament. Right? It was in the NEC at the time.
Yes.
I think it was at the Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton.
Yes.
And I remember like all the students start chanting like, "We want Duke." We're like, "No, you don't.
Yeah.
you don't
No
want Duke."
way. That's not a good idea.
Bringing back memories, man. But
our fans were so pumped up before that game. Like there was a lot of fans who came, like Monmouth. There was a whole Monmouth section, and they were going crazy. I mean, they were like, everyone walked on, and we all kind of believed we're going to be the ones. We're going to be the ones. And then you realize that, like, you know, and it's crazy. Like Jay and Shane, and they're so good, and it's just like they were so well coached, obviously, but they just did such a good job. And I always said, like, that game, that was one of those games, like I saw it in Battier's eyes, and I kind of talked about that. Like he was like, it starts now. Like he was looking at his teammates, he's like, it starts now. And I was like, guys, like we're a 16 seed. No, it starts next round. Fuck around this game right now. You guys need to just like mess around, like focus next time, because he was so focused and they came out so focused. And that's a credit to them as a unit to be like, we're playing a 16 seed. We can kind of not really show up and still win. But they were like, nope, like we're going to town.
All right, Marietta, you're up.
Hi, I'm back. So I do have one more, particularly, so I played at Rider as well. So shout out to going mid-major. So then my question to you would be, particularly having had the mid-major experience, is there one particular bit of information you will offer to a college senior at this point?
It's crazy. I think the biggest thing in terms of getting your career from that like mid-major, which we were at Monmouth, like my junior and senior year. After that sophomore year, we ended up being a mid-major, playing, you know, those Gonzagas, and we played a tough schedule. We ended up beating the Vanderbilts and stuff like that. I think that was the biggest thing that I had was just like, as I grew in confidence, I stopped being scared. I stopped being scared before games, and I just realized that, like, as I progressed in professional basketball and I went to exposure camps, where you went to college really doesn't matter. If you're good, you're good. So especially as a senior, like I'm sure those seniors who are at a mid-major could probably go out and play one-on-one against some of these guys at Duke and, you know, UNC and like mop them. Like it's just one of those things, like where you went to college no longer matters as you get into that realm. I mean, look at the guys who are late bloomers. And I think that happens. Like I was a late bloomer. I didn't really develop until late. Look at guys like Dame. Dame is like the perfect example. Weber State, and he's just always, he's undersized, he's this, and never stopped him. And he just realized, like, I'm better than these guys. Like, I don't care where you went to school. I'm this, I'm that, and I'm going to go out and kick their ass. And look at his career now. I mean, he's one of the best players in like the NBA. I think it's incredible. So that would be my advice. Like those big names on the front of the uniform don't really matter as much as you think that they do.
Yeah. So does anyone have any other questions or congratulatory marks?
Yeah, I do. Do you now that you've been out of college a while, do you have any connection to the current Monmouth staff or the current do you still have any connection with the school?
At Monmouth, it's funny because Dave Calloway, who was my coach at Monmouth, obviously he ends up, he has such a great set time period. And goes to the tournament 3 times, I think. And then they have 3 down years or 4 down years, and then he's gone. And King Rice now is the coach. And that was always a tough thing because you don't know. I don't really know King, North Carolina. I know Chucky, you probably know King just from the North Carolina connection, UNC and NC State. But King came in, and you know, it's like he's building a program, and like as an alumni, I'm just kind of like, I don't really know this guy. Like, I don't know anything about him. He's done a tremendous job of reaching out to me personally, has called me, FaceTime me. We've talked multiple times, especially we just talked on Tuesday, had a good FaceTime conversation just about telling, you know, congratulations, he's going to buy some books for the team. So I do have that connection, but it's very tough because college basketball, the coaches just are in a constant rotating thing, that maintaining that connection is tough. And you guys got, you know, there's like the Krzyzewskis, and even though, you know, now John Shire, is that who's in charge now? He's there. I mean, they kind of have it in house, but it's tough to maintain those connections when a completely new guy from a completely new system is coming in. So it really helps when that coach reaches out and makes that effort, which King did, and I appreciate him for that.
All right. So Kevin, where can they find the book? And 2, do you have any closing remarks?
So yes, they can buy the book on Amazon. Where's the chat? Oh, here we go. I will post I'll post the whatchamacallit on, I have it right here. Control, wait, Command C. And then, yeah, like closing remarks, honestly, this is like super cool. And if you know me, like I'm not really that guy who wants to be in the spotlight. I wrote this book, like I said, I wanted to leave a legacy, but I'm not like the guy, I don't really care about the money. I'm not like, don't care about the fame. I just wanted those stories to kind of go out there. I wanted those stories to people to read it and enjoy it and just share in this moment. So I think that was something that I really look at. It's not really any accolades for me. I'm just really happy. I want people to enjoy. Like I feel like a lot of my people who know me, like I'm like the person who wants to make sure that everyone's happy at all times. And I think that's what this book almost is an extension of. Trying to make sure that everyone's happy, especially with the craziness in the world. They can pick this up and smile and laugh and, you know, enjoy it. That is really my goal. So I really honestly appreciate you guys coming out tonight and giving up an hour and, you know, 20 minutes of your time to kind of come and listen to these stories. I think this was a lot of fun. I think our, you know, Ben and Chucky, it was awesome kind of hearing your answers. I think this is so cool to hear, you know, different perspectives of overseas basketball and just basketball in general. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah. And what's going on next week?
Next week, if you're in the South Jersey area, at Mechanical Brewing on Friday night at 6 o'clock, I think, we're having a book launch signing. So it's going to be an actual physical thing where you can come, and it's beers and books, we're calling it, and Mechanical Brewing's like, bring everyone. And like, they were like, well, the place is yours. So we have a DJ going. It's going to be a good time. DJ John Hunt from the podcast. And we're all going to be hanging out. I'll be signing books. So we wanted to give it a week or another like week and a half, just in case you bought the book and it doesn't arrive. And then you're kind of, you know, so if you wanted to bring the book, I'll sign it there. I'll have books to buy and sign as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And anytime you can kind of just drink a beer, and just, especially in this world now, it's awesome. So it should be a good time. So come on out and check that out. I also do want to, you know, I thanked you know, Cheryl and Don, you know, Karen McCandless for the cover of the book, Chucky and Ben. I also want to thank my team, Michaela, who's here, Matt, who's on, who've done a tremendous job of with the podcast and everything, and like Overseas Famous Book and really getting things going. We're on a chain and we talk all the time. Michaela also had a great idea. She's like, we can get other people on if we have a giveaway of a tank top. Michaela, do we have anyone who won the tank top? If not, I'm just going to give it to a random person.
I say we should give it to a random person because very clear in the rules in my social media posts, but apparently the rules aren't very clear. So that's something we'll discuss in the meeting. But no one commented on the post, even though it got a lot of likes. So I think you should pick someone random because, you know, they showed up to class tonight, so they deserve.
Sure. Who wears tank tops? First, that's not an everybody thing. Like I rock tank tops all the time, but I'm a really sweaty person. But if you rock, who wears? Shane, you rock tank tops. All right, let's go, Shane. Shane, you got the tank top.
Sweet, I run all the time.
We'll get. Shoot me a message on. Do you follow us on Instagram or Twitter?
I do, but I can also get to you. I can get to you through Don.
Oh, sweet, perfect. That would be awesome. Yeah, shoot it. Get the information, and we'll shoot that out to you.
Kevin, I don't think that the link got put into the chat. I don't see it.
Oh, I sent it to. Sorry, I sent it to someone. I was going to send it out everyone in the meeting. Here we go.
Good one, Kev.
Yeah,
just Google
sorry.
overseas famous.
Yeah, there we go. I sent it directly to my friend Mike, who still won't buy it.
If you go to Amazon and put overseas famous, it's like the second thing that comes up.
Which is wild because like I don't think the first thing is anything to do with overseas famous. Like it's like I'm second to something completely different. It's like there's like a book about like traveling to Peru, and that for some reason is ahead of the actual book titled Overseas Famous. I don't understand search engines or anything like that, but this is super cool. I really appreciate everyone coming out. I like can't thank you enough. I'm like humbled by this, and I really appreciate, you know, humbled by you guys taking their time out, and you know, my panelists and Cheryl for hosting, Don, like everyone. I'm really humbled and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, well, if no one else has any other questions or comments, have a great night.
Congrats again.
Right, congrats, Kevin. All right,
you guys. Thank you so
Take
much.
care. All right.
Bye.
Wrong answers on the mirror for me. That's why I pick and choose. I don't get you confused. I got a small circle. I'm not with different crews. We walk the same path, but got on different shoes. Live in the same building, but we got different views. I got a couple cars I never get to use. Don't like my women single. I like my chicks in twos. And these days, all the girls is down the road. I hit the strip club and all them bitches find a pole. Plus, I've been sipping, so this shit is moving kinda slow. Just tell my girl to tell a friend that it's time to go. Now tell me how you love it. You know you at the top and only heaven's right above it. We own. It's young money, motherfucker. If you ain't running with it, run from it, motherfucker. Alright, now somebody show some money in this bitch. And I got my bees with me like some honey in this bitch. You dig? I got my gun in my boot purse and I don't bust back because I shoot first. Meet me on the fresh train. Yes, I'm in the building. You just on the list of guest names. And all of my riders do not give a X games. Guns turn you boys into sex change.